The body was found at dawn, face down in the snow, wearing a uniform that belonged to no army. And that was the first moment the war revealed it had been lying all along. The soldiers who discovered him stood frozen, rifles slack in their hands, unsure whether to salute, search, or step back. The uniform was German in cut, British in fabric, Soviet in insignia, and marked with a serial number that did not exist in any ledger. No dog tags, no papers, no wounds that explained how he died. Just a man who should not have been there, on a forgotten stretch of frozen forest between borders that had already been erased by bombs. That morning, a report was written and immediately stamped classified. By nightfall it was buried, and by the end of the war, the man had been erased from history entirely. Except he hadn't been. Years earlier, long before the snow and silence claimed him, he had been a boy with a real name. A boy who laughed too loudly, who ran too fast, who believed, foolishly, that wars were fought by heroes and ended cleanly. His childhood vanished with the first invasion. One day there was a school. The next, a crater. One day he had parents. The next, neighbors digging shallow graves with broken tools. The war did not knock. It entered screaming. By 16, he spoke 3 languages fluently, not because he was gifted, but because survival demanded it. By 18, he had learned how uniforms could save your life or end it in seconds. And by 20, he stopped thinking of himself as belonging to any nation at all. That was when intelligence services noticed him. Not because he sought them out, because he was already doing their work, moving between lines, carrying information, slipping through cracks no map could show. He was invisible in plain sight, the kind of man history never notices until it's too late. They offered him a choice: serve officially and be recorded, or serve quietly and be forgotten. He chose the second. That decision would turn him into the most dangerous kind of weapon the war ever created. A man without a country, without a file, without a future. And once he stepped into that role, there was no way back. They never trained him in one place. He was passed from cellar to cellar, from safe house to safe house, across borders that shifted weekly. British handlers taught him codes. German defectors taught him how to think like the enemy. A Soviet officer taught him how to disappear. He learned how to speak without an accent, and how to silence one. He memorized rail schedules, radio frequencies, officer habits. He learned which lies sounded true when whispered, and which truths could only survive if shouted. Most of all, he learned detachment. Names became dangerous. Faces became temporary. Attachments became liabilities. Every mission stripped another layer of his former self away, until he no longer recognized the man staring back from cracked mirrors. Officially, he did not exist. Unofficially, he was everywhere. He walked into occupied cities wearing enemy colors and walked out with secrets that rerouted entire offensives. Convoys vanished after he passed through. Safe houses were evacuated hours before raids. Commanders made decisions based on information they never questioned and never knew came from him. But the cost was steep. Every night, he dreamed in fragments. Languages collided in his thoughts. He woke unsure which side he was supposed to hate today. The war had turned him into a tool, but tools still feel when they break. And slowly something changed. The missions stopped aligning with strategy. Orders contradicted one another. Information he delivered vanished into silence. Entire operations collapsed without explanation. He realized the truth too late. He wasn't just being used. He was being erased, the final assignment. Arrived without insignia, without signatures, without accountability. A simple directive: cross the line, verify a rumor, return quietly. No extraction plan. No backup. No confirmation channel. That was when he understood this was not a mission. It was a burial. Still, he went. Because refusing meant immediate disappearance. And because part of him still believed that surviving meant something, that the truth mattered, even if no one would ever know he carried it. He crossed into territory officially declared impassable. The front had folded in on itself. Alliances fractured. Trust evaporated. Everyone was hunting spies. He moved anyway. Disguised again. Another uniform. Another identity. Another lie layered over too many others to count. What he found was worse than rumor. Evidence of deliberate sabotage. Friendly forces misdirected. Entire units sacrificed for political leverage. The war within the war, the one history would never write about. He documented everything. And that sealed his fate. They knew before he reached the drop point. Radio silence stretched too long. Safe signals went unanswered. The city felt wrong, eyes lingering, footsteps echoing just a moment too close. He ran. Through streets shredded by artillery. Through buildings hollowed into skeletons. Through a city that no longer belonged to the living. Shots cracked behind him. Orders shouted in 3 languages. By the way, if you're holding your breath through this moment with me, make sure to hit subscribe. This story doesn't loosen its grip from here. He escaped barely, but something had changed. Every side wanted him dead. Not because he had failed, but because he knew too much. He crossed lines under fire. Changed uniforms mid-flight. Burned documents he had memorized line by line. And then finally the snow. The place where he would be found. Alone. When they discovered him, there was no record to match his face. No fingerprints on file. No missing soldier reports. Different governments quietly sent agents to examine the body. Each left with more questions than answers. Because every nation recognized the signs. This man had served them. And none of them wanted to admit it. So they did what governments do best. They erased him. Files destroyed. Witnesses reassigned. Reports rewritten. His existence reduced to a clerical anomaly. History marched on. But truth has a way of leaking through cracks. Decades later, a historian found a box misfiled under agricultural data. Inside were fragments, redacted reports, conflicting timestamps, one blurred photograph. The same face. Always the same face. Different names. Different uniforms. Same eyes. Piece by piece, the impossible picture emerged. A soldier who served everyone. A spy no one could claim. A man sacrificed so the war could end cleanly on paper. The historian published nothing. Some stories, once told, cannot be taken back that he never received a grave marker. No medal. No apology. But he existed. In the quiet decisions that saved cities. In the battles that never happened because someone knew where not to fight. In the silence between official victories. The war ended. Nations celebrated. Monuments rose. And somewhere beneath the snow, a man without a flag rested. Proof that the greatest sacrifices are often the ones no one is allowed to remember.